Hi, this is Linda Rance with Ministry Solutions Expert. We're going to do a video today talking about some tips for Ministry Scheduler Pro. Specifically, we're going to go after scheduling one ministry. In this video, we're going to actually use clergy, uh, not generally your volunteers in the church, but it's something where a lot of churches are not sure, even when they have just the one pastor to schedule, whether or not they should put the clergy into the scheduling system. And I'm going to tell you, especially if you have deacons and multiple clergy, it's a great way to keep them up to date on what's happening. We're also going to talk about scheduling for multi-locations. Some parishes have combined into cluster parishes or tri-parish communities, and one parish staff or one group of organizers or main volunteers are scheduling for services that are happening at different locations. There's also where there are multiple campuses. There might be a chapel and a church, different places that the priest is doing services at. And so we're going to take a look at that and discuss how we can make that work. So in this video, here's what we're going to cover. We're going to talk first about the preliminary setup. Now, as we go through this, you'll see that in my demo database, I already have this information in there. This video is not about starting from scratch. It's about having this information built in and how it looks so that you can have this work very quickly and easily for you as you schedule each of your different scheduling periods. So preliminary setup, we'll look quickly at ministries, the service times, the actual volunteer profiles. We'll talk quickly about pre-assignments and teams and how that works in. And then the important part that does happen every single scheduling time is getting volunteers to submit their availability. Then we're going to go and actually open up the software and take a look at commence scheduling. And this video is going to be about a 20-minute video or less, and even with all of my explanation, we're going to have those schedules. We're going to commence the scheduling, create the schedule, and then run the auto scheduler, and then I'll show you how everyone sees their assignments. So it's a great system, and let's go ahead and talk about these different preliminary setup first. So this is a screenshot of the Ministries tab. And you can see from in the column here, let me get a little pointer so I can show you. I have first divided this particular building up. Instead of giving it the name of St. Anne, St. Andrew, or whatever it is, we're calling it our different locations for this multi-location: church, chapel, and cathedral. That was the easiest way. Now, in the Plus edition of Ministry Scheduler Pro, you get these folders, and you can see the folder button over here. Folders are what allow you to create and manage different locations, or even how you break up your ministries. Now, under the church, which is where my main database sat, you can see I have a lot of ministries in here. They're collapsed right now, so you don't see all of them. But under clergy, you'll see celebrant, concelebrant, and the deacon. Now, in order to do this demonstration, I added a chapel and I added a cathedral, and I only added the clergy positions. I didn't need to recreate the entire all the worship ministries and music ministries. Certainly, if you're doing this in your live database, you're going to create all of those, the ones that are necessary for each different location. Now, this is one way to set this up, where you see clergy assigned to different locations. It really depends on how the parish is handling it. If it doesn't matter where the clergy, so let's say you have 3 or 4 priests and they're just going to cover the church, the chapel, the cathedral, it doesn't matter, then you could just have one clergy ministry and let them be assigned to the different locations. In this instance, I separated them out so that if some of them don't serve at one of the locations, let's say the chapel, which only has one service, doesn't need all of them, it was an easier way to keep them out rather than getting them into the rotation. Okay, so now the next thing that we're going to want to look at are the service times. Now, in this, starting with the weekly services, and it starts with Saturday, and you can see the 8, 8:30, 5, and 8 p.m. And then I've designated where it's at, the cathedral, the church, the cathedral, and so forth. And it goes on. My little note here for language means that it's a mass in a language other than English, but rather than try to put in a language there, I leave it to your imagination which language it might be for that particular mass. So you'll see that these are set up. Now, over here is the list of volunteers required at each service. And again, for purposes of this demonstration, I didn't fill in the cathedral and the chapel. So those will show, like at the cathedral, there's just one volunteer, and that's actually the priest. And we know there'll be a lot more volunteers than that. Okay, so that's service time. And then we're going to take a look at the volunteers. Now, the volunteers, I've changed my view down here. I've filtered it so that we're only looking at clergy. Otherwise, there's 372 volunteers in this list, and this is an easier way to look at just the ones that are in there. Now, the first one, the visiting priest, never gets auto-scheduled. It's just in there so that if there's a time when there's going to be a visiting priest, maybe a mission priest coming in or a missionary coming to preside, um, you don't want to have to create a profile for each individual priest that comes in when they're only there once or maybe a couple times a year. So I have a visiting priest profile, and I'll just use that for any priest who's not a regular priest at the parish. And then I just put in the notes to the other volunteers the actual name of the priest who's coming. Now, in this list, we have some priests, there's a bishop in here, and then there's about 4 deacons that are also listed in here. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and take a look at the actual software so that you can see what it looks like for the volunteers when we look at their availability. So, and again, let me go ahead and filter this to the clergy. Okay, so we're going to look at Father Damien Jackson. I'm going to go ahead here and click Edit Volunteer, and you'll see that he is qualified for the church, the chapel, and the cathedral, so he has all of those. He has some can't serve dates here that he's going to be out of town. Now, if there was anything else that we needed to keep track of, for instance, let me move this over. Hang on just a second. I want to get so we can see my little notes over here. Let's say he had Tuesdays off. So we could go in here and actually say that every Tuesday is his day off, and so he's not available on those particular days. And that can be added. There's a lot of different preferences you can put in here. The most important thing is that you're going to say, well, especially just not for clergy, but for volunteers, how do we know when people are available or not available? Well, they're going to let us know via the app, which we're going to talk about a little bit later in this, the web terminal, which I'm going to show you near the end of this when we show the actual schedules, and then again, there's the good old-fashioned way. They've either emailed, they've called, they've spoken to you. A lot of people are still going to just say, hey, I'm not available, especially when we're talking clergy. Okay, so getting back to our presentation then, we've looked at the ministries, the service times, and the volunteers. Now, pre-assignments, just so you know, and I have some marked down here, the cathedral. Let's say that Father Peter Wen is the only one who can do Mass in this particular language, whatever language that happens to be. And Father Pierre La Follette is the only priest who does Mass in this language. So they're pre-assigned. On the Sunday at 9:30 and Sunday at 11:30, these priests are pre-assigned to those Masses. Now, if by chance they're not available, the system's going to know that and leave it open and unfilled until we figure out who can do it. But these are assignments that they would have. So that's how you would use a pre-assignment. There's another feature you might use, and again, a lot of this is for volunteers, is teams that you want to keep together. Now, When it's a family, when you're talking your regular ministry volunteers, you would use this family groupings feature. We're not going to look at that right now. Teams is another feature, and what we have is Bishop Randy Harkman, and anytime he's serving, we want to have a deacon with him, and Deacon Jeremiah Person has volunteered for that duty. So we've created a team so that when they're assigned, they get assigned together at their services, anything that they're assigned to. Okay, so back to this, we're talking about a little bit earlier, getting volunteers and clergy to submit their availability. So the best way is with the app. It's iPhone and Android. It is like the greatest invention in ministry scheduling. And they can easily, any volunteer, any clergy can easily go on, tap in onto their profile just by logging in on their phone and enter a date. It would take 45 seconds, a minute at the most, if that. I couldn't even imagine it taking that long unless they're just not sure of their dates. The web terminal, which is logging into a website, works very much the same way, has even more features for giving times that they're available or their preferences, and that's available to every volunteer, has their own login. And then the software also has a built-in email tool for reminders that you can send out, and there's always, again, the good old-fashioned way of making announcements at Mass. You know, ministers, please go online and submit your availability. We're going to be doing the schedules next week. Okay, so we've talked about what you need to have in place to get this ready to go. Now, honestly, once you're ready, once you've got that framework set up, and yes, it will take some little bit of tweaking here and there to make it work the way you want, but now we're ready to commence scheduling. So we're going to show you that, and what I'm going to do here is bring up the software again, and we're going to go here to schedules. Now, on the schedules, you'll see here that I tend to schedule in liturgical seasons. It works out really well. It's usually somewhere from 6 to 12 or 15 weeks or something. It's a good period of time. And we're just finishing up. August 30th is finishing up the first half of this big chunk of ordinary time that we have. So we want to create a schedule that is August 31st, which is here, to November 22nd. That's the end of ordinary time, and then Advent will begin. So we've got what we need. We've got our service time set up, the ministries, the volunteers, everything's in there. We've put our dates in. All we need to do is hit create. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create, and the system is going to create a skeleton schedule, as we call it. I'm going to start a timer here because I want to time the rest of this part that we're going. Now it's asked me a question. I'm not going to go into detail about these. That's a different video. I'm just going to go ahead and click continue. So what the system is doing right now is generating its skeleton schedule. And that's going to be a blank schedule with everything in it, all of the services, all of any special holy days, anything that you've built into your overall setup. And it's going to be blank, no volunteers in it or clergy unless they are pre-assignments. And the pre-assignments go in at this point, but everything else will be blank. So rather than have you sit and watch the little green bar move slowly, I've got the timer running, and I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll jump back in when it finishes the skeleton schedule. Okay, so you can see it's been about 2 minutes that the timer's been running, and the skeleton schedule finished, and it's actually opened a second window. And let me just spread these out just a little bit so we can see them kind of sort of side by side. Now what you'll see here is this sort of interactive menu, and clicking on a date will open any of the services scheduled for that date. And you'll see here at the top we have August 31st at 7:30 a.m. There's a daily mass in the cathedral. At 8 o'clock there is a daily mass in the church. At 9 o'clock there is another daily mass in the cathedral, and then in the evening there's a music rehearsal. And the music rehearsals, a different video, different thing to talk about, but I love scheduling the music department and their music rehearsals because it they just so appreciated it. It kept everything organized. Okay, now I still have the timer running because I would normally, as I'm putting my schedules together, I'm going to go through this and I'm going to click on some dates and see how everything looks to make sure that everything's okay and that I'm happy with how it came out before I go ahead and auto schedule. So this is a Sunday, and that's usually the best place to start. And we can see that we've got a 7:30 a.m. Mass in the cathedral, the 9 o'clock Mass in the church, and again, all of the volunteer positions are showing because those are filled in. Another church, and you can see on this one, I'll cover it so that you can, let me go underneath it. This is the 9:30 a.m. Mass in the cathedral. It's a, quote, language Mass, and there is Father Pierre La Follette. And then we've got the 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, and way down here at the bottom is the other language Mass, and you'll see that Father Peter Wen is already scheduled for that Mass. So that looks good to me, and I would flip through a couple others. They're going to look pretty much the same. And then I could do some daily masses and some weekdays. I might want to check November 1st, which is All Saints Day, to make sure, since it falls on a Sunday, we didn't have to do anything and we were able to keep it at our regular Sunday schedule. We didn't do any special times for that. Okay, I'm happy with how it came out. My timer is still running, and I'm going to hit this button up here, which is called Commence Scheduling. And now, by hitting that, and again, I get some other notices that is time for a different discussion. But this one, which ones do I want to auto schedule? I'm going to select in a particular ministry, the second choice, because I don't want to schedule everyone at this point. I'm doing only the clergy. I'll hit continue, and I'll choose the clergy, and remember I have them in different folders. I have them in the cathedral, the chapel, and in the church. So I need to select each one of them. And now I hit commence scheduling. Okay, this takes a little bit longer than the first one. Here's the timer still running from the first time. It's about 5 minutes and 20 seconds now. And it's going to run through its algorithm, and it's going to check all of the availabilities. It's going to evenly distribute the assignments. It's going to make sure that there's no overlap. Now, I will tell you, with clergy, it's a little bit different. When you schedule families, it looks at the schedule and knows that Saturday and Sunday are all the same sort of liturgical day, and it won't double schedule someone. They don't get scheduled on Saturday and Sunday or for multiple services on Sunday. Um, and the families are kept together, so you don't have an issue where families get split up at two different masses. The software is amazing for that. But with clergy, they have to serve, not that they have to, I'm sure they love to, but they serve at um, multiple masses during the weekend. And the demo I'm doing may not be exactly how your church would set it up, but it can be tweaked and set for that. So let me go ahead and pause again. I want to be able to finish it right about 20 minutes, so I'm going to pause while this finishes up, and then we'll take a look at the finished product. Okay, and welcome back. It has finished its scheduling, and we're on that same All Saints Day we left off on, and you can see that it has now filled in all of the clergy positions. Now, without a doubt, there are going to be some quirks that need to be figured out. I think if we looked at a Sunday here, let's see. This might work. See, we have Father Damian Jackson at 7:30 and then again at 11 o'clock. There's going to be, when you're first putting it together, times when the priest will get scheduled too close together, and the system just doesn't know, and you just have to finish tweaking it just right. And our tech support is great with that to help you figure out what settings will work so that you don't have those issues. So we like what we've got. I would, if these were my schedules that I was about to publish, I would go through each of them and take a quick look. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and save this schedule. I'm just going to keep this date. I'll clean up my date later. And you're going to see it appear over here in this side over here. And it's now the second live schedule. So it's there, and we've got it here. Now, your question should be, how do we get assignments out to all the volunteers and or clergy? Well, first of all, as soon as it's saved the way I did it just now, where I hit Save As and made it live, that schedule is now available on their phone app. So the first thing is just looking at their phone app, they're going to see it. They're also going to see it on the web terminal. I'm going to show you that here in just a second. And then there's a built-in tool in the software that allows you to create a template. There's a template email created, and you just use it. You click on it and say, send out the emails or send out the text messages, and or the emails, because I know the text messages don't send the schedules. But you say send those out, and it'll say, like, dear volunteer Bob, here are your assignments for the next upcoming schedule. And you have a quick and easy way to print them for those who don't use email or internet or any of those things. So we have all kinds of ways to do it. So let's go ahead and take a look at that web terminal. Okay, this is Father Damian Jackson. These were his assignments all the way up to August 30th. So I'm going to refresh his page, and we should see, and we do, the list of all his assignments all the way through November 22nd. Now, if he finds that he was assigned for something that he can't do, or something comes up where he gets called where he has to be in a meeting, or maybe pastoral care for a family, he can come in and just quickly, either on his iPhone or here, this is his website, his own personal login and his assignments, see we're at his schedule, and he can quickly here say, request a sub. And that will send a message out to the administrator and then to the other clergy, anybody who's qualified to fill in for him. And he can say, I have to visit a parish family. Okay, and he requests the sub. And that goes into the system, different video to explain how that works, but you can see there's a sub requested for that particular assignment now. And yes, it's fabulous the way we can work it out. So we'll know, and the system will also say, hey, we have some unfilled positions that we need to work on. So, and one other thing I would like you to see on that, just to note, for those who use Google Calendar, Outlook, or iCal, once you have these assignments here, you can click here and export them and load them right into your calendar, so that you're up to date with what's happening right there in your calendar. Okay, so that is the bulk of what I wanted to show you for clergy and multi-location. Again, my name is Linda Rance. I'm happy to answer questions and help you work your way through getting your Ministry Scheduler Pro tweaked perfectly for your particular parish situation. Feel free to call or email. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. Thank you very much. We'll see you again soon.